Welcome to this guided quiet time, written and hosted by myself, Warren Walker. I differentiate these tales from ASMR or from guided meditation because they do not fulfill the purpose of either. These are meant to be quiet, quaint, easygoing, and cozy fantasy stories for you to fully immerse yourself into. While not explicitly made for you to fall asleep to, they are designed to relax you and pull you from the real world and into a fantasy world. It's okay to fall asleep. You can come back to any of these tracks so long as it suits you. But given the content of the material, it is not recommended for you to listen to any of my guided quiet time series while driving or operating heavy equipment. While these are not specifically made for children, there's no content within the bounds of this series I think would be objectionable for them. Were this a movie, it would be PG. Were it a game, you could expect it to be E10+. That being said, let's get into it with a relaxation exercise to fully immerse yourself. The first step is to get comfortable. Feel free to pause the video now to get optimally adjusted to your comfort. If at any point in time you need to physically move in order to be more comfortable again, that's okay. Nothing is ruined. The experience will go on, and you will forget about this interruption soon enough. Now then, imagine yourself in a forest, surrounded by tall pine trees on every side. Ahead of you there are 6 stones laid out like a footpath. Green grass stretches on between the trees in all directions, and golden sunlight beams down. We're going to walk across this small trail now, but first, let's do a breathing exercise. I'd like to guide you through a process known as box breathing. This is used by professionals such as Navy SEALs to help relax in stressful situations. Obviously, we are not in a stressful situation right now, but I find it helps relaxation in general. And this is a skill you can take with you into the real and waking world. Use it whenever you'd like. Consider this a gift. We will be inhaling for 4 seconds, holding it at the top for 4 seconds, releasing for 4 seconds, and holding at the bottom for 4 seconds. With this in mind, breathe in. Feel your physical body strongly wherever it may be, every limb, every muscle. Breathe out. Feel all these things loosen up slowly. Breathe in. You catch a whiff of pine drifting in your nostrils as your connection to the world of imagination grows. Breathe out. Your physical body starts to pleasantly unwind like a rope slowly uncoiling. Breathe in. You can feel wind against your cheeks and practically hear the chirping of birds. Breathe out. You feel especially those forgotten about muscles start to relax. Your face droops. Your fingers tingle a bit, as do your toes. You may breathe normally now. Looking in the mind's eye, you see the footpath ends in a small wooden door. Walk on my mark. Step. You feel every muscle in your physical body pulsating in your leg, as if you were really moving, yet stopping just shy of activating them. Step. The other leg is exactly the same. It should feel like a slightly pleasant burn, or a tingle. Now with even less effort than the first time. Step. Your imaginary leg meets with the stone footpath. You step again. Step. Now your physical leg feels like a ghost, and your legs in the mind's eye are solidifying. Reaching out, you knock 3 times with the right hand, because it's polite. With every knock, feel the wooden door reverberate through your arm. The vibrations slowly disconnect your physical arm, allowing you to grow more and more immersed in this world of imagination. Now, with your left arm, you pull the door open, and as it groans on its hinges, your physical body becomes so loose you hardly feel anything on it at all. Ahead of you now is a stone stairwell. There are 10 steps on the stairwell. Before we begin, let's just shake off all remaining attachment to our physical body with a little bit more breath work. Feel free right now to adjust physically anything you need to before we delve in. Breathe in. Breathe out. 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 Very good. Now, using only your mind's eye, let's climb to the top of this stairwell together. Step. 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 Your legs strain a slight bit, although this is nothing compared to what you may feel if physically attempting this. Step. Step. A breeze scatters leaves across the step. Step. One leaf crunches underfoot. Step. 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 You can now see what's at the top of the stairwell. A large, circular portal, shimmering and golden, held in place by branches grown to contain it. You can hear a slight hum radiating from the portal. Step towards it, You can feel its energy, calm and soothing, radiating into you. You advance towards the portal, now in full control of your imaginary body. Reach out, touch the portal, and enter. It's thick as you enter it, as if walking through water. But slowly, it gives in to a golden mist obscuring your vision, enveloping you in warmth. It feels as though a great warm blanket has been laid over the top of you. The gold slowly gives in to tonight's tale, and your vision becomes more clear. You're sitting with your back to a large oak tree. The soft moss growing on the bark forms something of a cushion for you to lay against. You are completely enveloped in the natural warmth the spring sun gives you beaming through the canopy of trees overhead. The forest stretches on in all directions with all manner of trees, rocks, stumps, and logs. Various woodland creatures frolic about. Deer playing in puddles, rabbits chase each other through the brush, birds of all different colors flit about from one tree to the other. Looking down to your right, you see a small leather bag of caramel candies set out on a rock. On your left, there's a wooden cup filled with an ice-cold nectar, which tastes mildly of pancakes and syrup. These things will never run out, nor be anything save for the most ideal temperature to your tongue. The wind blows a cool breeze, wafting the scent of smoke and pollen into your nostrils. As you squint against the light far beyond the canopy, you can faintly make out a mountain range rising in the distance. Small red-capped mushrooms grow around you, rising through the fern. The little man directly in front of you, seated in a small, hollowed-out nook in a tree, is an interesting character. He stands no taller than your hip, although his pointy red hat comes up to your elbow if he were to stand up. He sports long, snow-white whiskers, although his face beneath the beard and sparkling eyes give off a youthful appearance. He's toking a long wooden pipe, mostly just blowing clouds, although occasionally he manages to blow a smoke ring. Set up against the tree he's perched in is a large backpack stuffed to the brim with what looks to be clothes. There's a small sword and a small shield resting on top of the backpack. "Ho! Traveler! Lost in the woods again, are you?" he asks. "Oh, I see. Not lost. Merely relaxing and enjoying nature. Nothing wrong with that, says I. Nothing at all. You see, I am actually doing the same, and this shall be my first and only rest for quite some time. Quite some time indeed, yes, for I am on a heroic journey." "Where am I going, you ask?" "Oh, traveler, I go in search of the Great Red Cap." "Well, yes, I know the cap on my head is great, but I'm not referring to this one. Traveler, I'm on my way to find the Great Red Cap, the one made by the first ever gnome. Yes, nobody is quite sure exactly where we came from or how we got here, But one thing we are certain of is that at one point in time, there was only one of us. We call him the Great Gnome Maker. They say he had a splendid, absolutely marvelous red cap with a point that was to die for. Oh yes, I've been in search of his cap for a long time. The folk back in my village say, "Tomte, you're just a little gnome. You can't go adventuring and whatnot." But oh, how I've proved them wrong. Let me tell you, traveler, I've been searching far and wide for this cap, and many an adventure I've had. One day I'll find it, and then they'll all be the fools. Where have I been? Why, stranger, I dare say I've been all over. Why, I've just come from the Temple of Mists. You've never heard of it? Bah! Well, let me tell you, it's no walk in the park. It started with a clue I'd received from a very reliable source, the source being my mother. She used to tell me tales of large temples beyond the Willowwood, just south of my home village, and said all the little folk used to gather there and make offerings to the mist. You see, the mist hides us wee folk from big folk like you. But no more. You know what else she told me? That it was rumored the priests of the mist had left within the temple a clue as to the whereabouts of the Great Red Cap. The only issue was that the temple lay in ruin after some gargantuan beast had made it his home. So naturally it was up to me to clear it. The only issue was, I had no blade at the time, so I was forced to go to the local blacksmith. I say local, but of course it was a 2-week journey. Oh, you've encountered the blacksmith. It was a 3-day journey. Well, ho, traveler, look at your legs compared to mine, Seems quite the difference your stride makes, would it not? He pauses, suckling his pipe till you notice his little face start to turn green. Then he exhales in a coughing fit. Where was I? Ah, yes, the blacksmith. So I make the long and dangerous trek to the lands beyond the mountain, and... Why, yes, I know it's just a hillock, but I must remind you, your legs are much longer than mine. Anywho, so I clear the dangerous trek over the top of the mountain and across the plains, and finally arrive at his little cabin in search of a mythical blade. He tried to give me a regular old dragon slayer at first. Ever seen a dragon slayer in person? Hardly blades, says I, more like large heaps of iron. I told him straight, no. This is far from fit for a journey of my undertaking, I says. Bring me a proper blade. And so he does. Observe. The wee man hops down from his perch and withdraws his blade from its sheath. The sword glints in the sunlight, and it's polished to perfection. The hilt is made to resemble a small toadstool, with thicker toadstools also jutting out to make up the crossguard. The surface of the blade is masterfully engraved with images of mushrooms, leaves, flowers, and bees. Tomte begins swinging the blade to and fro as he speaks, showing off his combat prowess. Yes, I call this blade Fungal Wrath, a blade fit for the gnome maker, if I do say so myself, and I do. And with this in hand, assuredly nobody could ever stop me. He trips briefly, almost impaling himself on the blade. He turns to you after a pause, with a sheepish grin on his face, and chuckles before sheathing the weapon again. So next I set off to the Temple of Mists. My journey took me far and wide, and I got a little lost midway through. Of course, amidst being lost, I wound up back at my village, but I used it as an opportunity to restock on supplies. Several weeks later, whence I had appropriately restocked my well of supplies, did I venture forth once more into the abyss. A long and dangerous trek full of harrowing chasms and dastardly villains. It's much too much to get into all that, though. I can see it in your eyes. What you're really interested in. So I make it to the temple, and it's this great stone structure. It probably wouldn't look too big to you, but to us folk it's massive. The first thing you'll notice is the entrance, with a grand porch and arching double doors and 4 pillars which hold the porch up. I panic for a moment as I ascend the steps, thinking to myself, what if it's locked? I stand there, staring at the broad stone double doors for several seconds. Then it hits me. Even if it's not locked, these doors are much too heavy for a single little gnome like me to pull open. But when you know yourself, you trust yourself. He tokes his pipe. Hey, that's pretty good. You ought to write that down, you know. One day I'll be a hero for the legends. A famous quote by me could be worth a lot of money. He chuckles, toking his pipe some more, and this time managing to blow out an actual ring of smoke. But as I was saying, these doors were heavy set, and I think, surely there's no way I could get them open. But I reach forward and try anyways. And wouldn't you know it, they dissolve as soon as my skin makes contact with them. They turn into this white vapor, a mist if you will, and so into the temple I go, and immediately hit a dead end. You see, there are of course 4 walls, counting the one I just came through. The only problem is that the other walls are all blocked off. He strokes his beard thoughtfully. There's an archway in each wall that looks like it ought to be a door, but they're just smooth. 2 of them have a square engraved into them, and the one on my right has a weird swirling design on it. So my first thought is that this is a trick, just like the door, so I take a running jump at the one directly ahead of me. You see his little face turn red beneath his white beard. Regrettably, I must inform you that it was solid. I banged my head right into the stone and stumbled away quite dazed indeed. I was confounded that the temple would merely end in a dead end. But then it hits me. The squares are buttons. So I go and press on it, and at first I think I'm not pressing hard enough. So I strain and I push and I use all my might, and nothing. The confounded thing won't give me an inch. So with nothing else to do, I soak off in defeat and go to slump against the portal on my right. Wouldn't you guess, I fall right through it, like a blithering idiot, tumbling head over heel as the mist swirls around me. When I regain my bearings, at last I found myself in a pit. I realized then that the door, much like the front, had been merely an illusion, a trick of the light, if you will. Now, going the way I had come was almost out of the question, for the ledge was too high for me to reach. My one beacon of hope is that there was a rope attached to the ceiling. Now you might think, the day is saved, for there's an escape rope. Fool that you are! He punctuates the air with a flourish of his pipe. For if I climb the rope, and went merely back whence I came, then how shall I progress to my ultimate goal? So I check all the walls, and they're solid as can be, so that can't be it. So I think, perhaps there's some marking up higher that I merely cannot see from this vantage point. So up the rope I go, hand after hand. Now I tell you, I am a very strong gnome, very strong indeed, and to carry my own body weight up this rope, it would be trivial. But as you can see, he plants a foot on his backpack. I do not travel light, for I must always be prepared. So as I climb, I'm scanning for any clue I might lay eyes on, and I feel my hands start to weaken, and my chest begins to burn, and then... He whistles, making a downward spiraling motion with his fingers. I was crushed, unable to progress, defeated in that very moment by my own thoughtfulness. But the same brain that packed that bag has a thought. Why not just leave the pack behind? You see, friend, I think it not good to be too attached to things, no matter how much work you've put into them. My elder used to refer to this as a sunk cost fallacy, I believe. But I'm not entirely sure what that even means. He strokes his beard thoughtfully, seemingly spacing out. His eyes gloss over for a few moments, as he seems completely lost in realms of his own mind. Suddenly, with a jolt, the gnome snaps back to reality. So anyways, as I was saying, to make the long and short of it, I track my steps back and leave my pack outside the front door. Now with nothing but a blade in its sheath on my hip, the rope is child's play to me. Except once I reach the top, there's nothing there. No clues, no symbols, nothing. I hang on for as long as I can, but after so long it grows too much to bear and down I go. I just lay there on the floor for a while, once again crushed, unable to even think of progressing. He ashes his pipe onto the ground and kicks some dirt over it, then begins rustling through his pack. But I noticed one detail. Oh yes, one stray detail which made me question. I was so close to the roof, and yet my hat was not crumpled at all. You see, if I was truly at the peak of the rope, my hat should have been smushed. And yet its shape was maintained to perfection. He produces a leather pouch from his bag and begins taking small brown leaves from it and cramming them into his pipe. Once more I scaled the rope, ascending the path to victory. And wouldn't you know it, the roof of the room dissolves into a mist. Only a few more hand over hands up, and I step off onto a ledge. Now you're probably thinking to yourself, this is nothing serious, just some hidden walls. But oh friend, this is where you would be wrong, as was I. The next room I step into is sort of a crossbeam, with stone bridges intersecting a vast chasm. Beneath me lays a bed of spikes, and as I peer over the edge, I know in my heart that one slip-up spells certain doom. Then I see it in front of me. A pale white man, a little taller than myself, holding a pale white sword. I don't know how to explain it, but it's almost like you can see through him. Although he is entirely white. Not only that, but there's two more of them, on either other end of the crossbeam. So naturally, I stand my ground. Running isn't on my mind in the slightest. Ha! I certainly would never run from a fight. Not I, Tomte the gnome adventurer. And then I hear the gate clank shut behind me. He holds his imaginary sword, slashing as he talks. So I draw fungal wrath, taking a bold step forward, certainly not back towards the gate, certainly not prying at the gate and trying to escape. No, not I. Slash! My blade goes right through the first baddie. He's obliterated into a mist, swirling around the room like a buffoon. But then the one on my left gets to me and prods me with his blade. I just hardly manage to back out of the way, but I slip, and now my footing is in peril. Regaining my footage, I give a hearty slash of my blade, whoosh, right through the bastard's head. Now the funny thing about them is when they disintegrate, there's no body, no blood, nothing. just turn into billowing clouds of steam. I whirl all confident now and lock blades with the last one, and his blade is solid as can be. He fends me backwards, and I stagger back, almost slipping again, but once more I rebalance myself and plunge forward with a thrust. Poof! Out of existence he goes. As if the temple itself sensed my victorious presence, a door slides open in front of me, and the call of adventure beckons me in. I stalk into the room, and it's densely foggy, and boy do I mean dense. I mean, you can hardly see your own hand in front of yourself. Then, out of nowhere, swoosh! A blade swings not 2 inches in front of my face. But stoic that I am, I keep my composure in charge. Onwards to victory, says I, onwards. My blade hacks, and I slash, and I chop, and I cut. I'm assuming I got them all, but it's hard to say because it's not like you can feel them when you hit them. I walked on for what felt like hours, battling against a foe I could scarce see. But then, the fog seemingly melts away, and all that's left is a thick wall of white mist behind me, and a large swath of space in front of me. And then I see it. It had red and white petals, and it's 3 times the size of myself. There are thorns growing on its stem. Indeed, it's a large rose growing through a crack in the temple floor. Smaller buds and flowers also sprout from its stem, but none of these, no, not even the coloration, are what makes it odd. For from its flowers, it's dispersing the mist in thick globs like an overflowing vase. The mist swirls and pools around my ankles, and I walk towards the flower. Sorrow burdening my heart for what I know I must do. To make the long and short of it, I hacked it down and avenged the years our glorious temple had lain dormant. He suddenly pauses, then turns back to his bag. He rustles in his bag for a few moments, then produces a small red and white rose petal. He smiles broadly. Beautiful, isn't it? But that's nothing. Watch this. He squeezes the rose and it spurts out mist. The mist grows and swirls and forms into a ball, which then forms into a silhouette of Tomte, pointed red cap and all. Tomte proceeds to do a secret handshake with his new body double, which ends in him dancing a little jig. The apparition mirrors the jig, and the jig is concluded with a clap, at which point the misty figure seemingly collapses in on itself. Haven't figured out much of practical use for it, he grumbles. But he's a very handsome fellow, if I do say so myself. He gives a happy toke of his pipe and blows 2 large balls of smoke. So that concludes my tale for today, friend. Did I find what I was looking for? Ah, but of course. This completely slipped my mind. So after felling the vile fog belcher, I see a door in the back room. Inside this door is a large library lit by a hanging, glowing blue crystal. Now there's quite possibly 500 odd books in this small back room. So the question is, how do I determine which one has the clue to the Great Red Cap? Well, as luck would have it, within the first 100 books I glance at, one is named Of the Great Red Cap and Its Mysteries. Upon opening it, the book was much too corroded to make out much of anything beyond a few words and fragments of sentences. But within the pages of the book lay a map. a map which directed me towards the ancient Temple of Toadstools. So thence I go. That is where I journey currently. He slumps against his backpack, relaxing fully into it. He sighs deeply, his body seemingly unwinding from the hyperactive tension that had previously plagued it. You know, friend, traveling teaches you a lot. So does adversity. He points his pipe at you. I think travel and adversity often go hand in hand, don't you? Perhaps this period of travel we both undergo now is meant to show us not faults, not weakness, but the strength within ourselves to persevere through the flames. Wouldn't you agree? But come, friend, I have rambled on for some time now. Tell me of some adventures which you have undertaken as of late.